Today is the day you guys have been waiting for. We're going to actually start touching these photos. Now, once again, we are not doing anything tremendously exciting. We're not going to talk about styles or anything like that. We're actually going to start with how to denoise and sharpen your images. Now, the reason why I'm doing this first is just because I'm seeing so many questions out there about this subject. So let's talk about it, because you can really do this at any point in your editing process when you're using Lightroom. So let's go take a look at some concert photos I took. Before we dive into the denoising though, I do want to point out a couple things on the shooting side. So I am in a dark situation, obviously not using flash because we are at a concert. If you find yourself in a similar situation, it is so important to understand like your camera's limitations and your own limitations. So my settings choices that I am making are based around those things. One tip though, if you are able to in this type of situation, actually overexpose your images and bring them back down, you will be able to like hide and reduce grain in that matter rather than shooting too dark and brightening it up. So you don't want to blow anything out, you don't want to overexpose, but if you're able to instead shoot at like this range and instead bring it back down, you will have less grain to deal with. Now in this particular situation, I'm kind of capped. 1/3 to like the 1/320 that I chose was to prevent motion blur from happening. ISO 6400 is because I know that's like a good safe range for my color, my grain, camera, everything. And then f1.2, I've got a good lens on. I know I can get the focus at that range. So again, all these choices that I made were based around the knowledge that I have of myself and my gear. So let's first of all brighten this up to where I want it to be so we can see what we're working on. And because we're at that higher ISO and we had to brighten it, you can see we're getting happy little grain all over the place there. We're gonna do first thing first, come down to detail. Now you can see out the gate, it sits you at 40. You wanna bring it up to like 65, 70. You can go to the red line if you really want to or you need to, but most photos, like just a little touch of like crispy helps it out. So I'm gonna pop that down. Yeah, around there's totally cool. Okay, now the fun part, masking. So you're gonna hold Option or Alt, depending on what you're using, PC or Mac, and you're gonna drag it until you start to see all that little texture disappear. Now, did you notice I said texture? Because this, my friends, is your difference between clarity and texture. Texture is all that little white fuzzy stuff you see. Clarity is that hard lines. So when you're adjusting your texture and clarity, those are the areas it will be hitting. I hope that helps for future you. But for now, for us, we're worried about grain. So let's get rid of some of that texture. Boom, right in there is a good place to start. Now with luminance, I don't like to go crazy on the luminance because you can see we get really fake looking and I'm just not a fan of that. So I typically hover around like 35, 25, because once you go past that line, again, like I said, it gets really fake. And for me, and for this particular image, that really looks pretty dang clean. So if this isn't the case for you and you need to take it one step further, here's where you can do it. Hit M and you're gonna get into your masks. You're going to select the background. So let's say like you had to specifically brighten the background to see some detail back there because it was hella dark. So we're gonna fix that. O will get rid of, if you hit O, it toggles what you're hitting and what you're not. So if you hit O, it'll get rid of that. And then we're going to start by reducing texture, clarity, sharpness, and getting rid of some noise. Now again, we want to be careful that we don't go too fake. So just a nice safe range that we still have like a little bit of texture back there, but not too much. And then we're gonna take it one step further. So let's say your subject wasn't like super in focus. That is another thing to note. This same technique can be used to like fake focus. So if you're like slightly out of focus on the subject in your background or like something else back there is like actually in focus, you can trick the eye into believing that your subject is in focus by making it the sharpest thing out there, which means taking away sharpness from your background. There's another little tidbit for you. We'll go over that more later, but we're gonna select our subject in this case because we're just trying to clean it up, make him really pop and stand out from that background. So we're gonna add just a little bit of clarity. Notice I am avoiding texture because that's gonna enhance these in-between lines. I want clarity. I'm gonna go ahead and give him, just him, not that background, a little bit of extra sharpening and a little bit more luminance. And you can see we're starting to clean him up just little bits at a time, still keeping it nice and like, I don't know, true. It looks real. It looks real. All right, so the reason I showed you that strategy first is because that is going to be your fastest, most efficient way to do it. And there's another way. There's one more way in Lightroom that you can denoise, and that is by clicking this denoise button. But it comes at a cost, and that cost is a whole lot of time. So I don't recommend using this unless you like really, truly need it. And sometimes I feel like it takes it just a little bit too far. It starts to look really fake, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so we're gonna hit denoise. As you can see, we're already entering the time suck, and here it begins. The 50 has been great for me. You can tweak it, you can mess with it, makes no difference, just roll with it. hit enhance. Well, it does make a difference, but you know what I mean. For what we're doing now, doesn't make a difference. We're just gonna roll with it. And you can see, my friends, we are waiting. And we are waiting, and we will continue to wait on this guy. And like I said, this is why I recommend doing the other way, because you can real quickly batch edit and just sync your sharpening and luminance settings across the board, along with your like background selection and your subject selection too, if you need to do that. So that's why I'm like, this the previous way I showed you is much faster, much more efficient. This way definitely gets the job done much longer. We're still waiting. Hey, there we go. Okay. So let's bring this back. We're gonna look at it. Okay. So as you can see, remember I said it tends to look a little bit fake. Do you see how his arm looks like literal rubber? I don't like to take my photos that far, right? I like to still look kind of real. Some people out there, they want it this sharp. Totally cool. Rock with it, roll with it, get rid of every single ounce of grain. Do you, but this is me. And so what I'm gonna do, if I needed to sharpen something or denoise something like that, I'm gonna add back in grain. And it's kind of cool too, because if you take away the grain, you can now like truly control how much grain you want in your image. So you can see here as we like add more grain back to it, how he starts to look a little bit more real again. All right, so there you have it. Super simple, super easy, 3 different ways to real quick sharpen your images all through Lightroom. And the beautiful part about keeping it in Lightroom is you can still edit your raw images, because once you take it to external programs, remember you are going to be working with like either TIFF or a different type of file that no longer has the capability of your raw photos. So as always, I recommend keeping it in Lightroom.